Hey again, and welcome back to the Living with Grace podcast. I'm Mary Wordman along with Ana Rosa, and we're really happy that you chose to push the play button and spend some time with us today. Now, in today's episode, Ana and I are talking about something that is deeply personal for the two of us. It's deeply personal for anyone listening, I'm sure, with your own experience, and we'll get to that. Ana and I met through this experience, and which has been a huge gift to both of us, I would say. And so, without further toying with you, I will tell you that the topic of today's podcast is grief. And I know that that can sound really heavy and maybe something that doesn't sound right off the bat as something that you want to engage in. But I am so hopeful that by listening along with us, that you'll gain insights into hope, into actionable steps that you can sort of take if you're feeling grief right now, and that you can just feel a sense of comfort by listening with us today. So without further ado, I want to say hello to my dear friend Ana and welcome Ana into the conversation.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Mary. I'm really grateful to be here. Like Mary has said, we're going to talk about grief, which is a journey we are traveling right now. We are walking daily and we build daily our grief journey. And we want to share with you all everything that has helped us to be exactly where we are right now with you, holding your hands and holding space, because I firmly believe, and I know Mary does too, that grief is a journey that doing together with others that are similar to us as humans and who are missing loved ones who went back home makes the unbearable more bearable, and we can support each other and we can share tools and resources to keep going and using our time in a manner that will definitely help us to keep healing and to keep moving with our loved ones in heaven. So let's do it, Mary. Let's talk about grief and let's hold each other and learn with each other and help everyone who is here with us as well.
Sounds good, Ana. So, the one thing about being human that we all have in common is that we deal with grief. And, honestly, I think that obviously when we think about grief, we think about the loss of a loved one or the loss of a beloved pet. Those things come to mind for me. But it's also the end of a relationship. It's also anything that you have become attached to, anything at all. If it leaves your life for any reason, there's grief involved. So as human beings, that is just our rite of passage. It's something that we deal with on an ongoing basis. So I think it's really helpful to recognize that and to honor that, right? Um, so so
Because,
that's
like Mary is saying, grief is like it could be the loss of your health, it could be the loss of a job, or moving to a different state or a different country and leaving your old life behind. Every time you leave your old life behind and you have to change your dreams and change the way you are looking at what's ahead of you, you might be grieving what's behind. And that's what we're going to be talking today about it. Um, Most likely, we are going to focus a little bit more on someone we love who dearly dies. But again, like Mary said, in every step of your journey, that you are leaving something behind and you are moving with a different perspective, it's a grief process. And we expect that every tool and every word that we are sharing with you today is going to help you in your journey.
for sure. And you are already hit on something that I think is so interesting, which is that grief often very often coincides with something that is not sad necessarily, right? Because when you say, looking behind, and you're also looking forward, so you may be looking forward to something like, graduating college, looking forward to that, but leaving your college friends or the familiarity of college behind, as a really quick little example. So, grief, the very interesting thing about grief is that it coincides or coexists with so many other different emotions. So let's just go ahead and define grief. So the definition of grief is that grief is the normal and natural reaction to loss of any kind. And I think we pretty much laid that out. Wouldn't you say, Anna?
Yes, like Mary's going to describe better as she is a grief coach. But yes, grief is a mix of emotions that can happen one at a time or can happen all of them in a roller coaster situation. And that's why we are here to talk to you for how to handle these emotions, how to be aware of them, how to recognize them, how to face them, how to embrace them, how to release some of them and keep moving forward and keep moving with all of them. I like what Nora McKinney says, and she had a TED talk that was really amazing. Grief teaches us that it's not about moving really forward or it's not about moving on, it's about moving with. And I invite each one of you to listen to this podcast with this perspective, moving with your emotions, working through them, navigating through them, switching them to more positive ones, moving with your dreams, moving with your loved ones, moving with everything that we used to suppress, deny, suffocate, and now we are inviting you to sit with us today and learn how to face, embrace, recognize, honor each one of these emotions, and shift the perspective. Yes.
Right. So I'm sure, Anna, that you're familiar with the stages of grief,
Mhm.
the Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's groundbreaking theory about the stages and all the emotions. What are they? I wrote them down. Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. There's been, I just wanted to touch on this because I think there's so much confusion around that. And I don't think it was, I know that it was never really meant to be a guideline, a linear guideline for people dealing with the loss of a loved one. It's more about the idea of someone being faced with a terminal diagnosis, right? The steps that you go through in that regard. What are your feelings on it?
Yes, yes, I do understand the stages of grief from Dr. Elizabeth as the stages of grief that someone who is dealing with a terminal illness will face: the denial, the anger, and then the depression, and then the acceptance. I forgot all of them, but I know that
Yeah.
the first one would be denial, and then you get angry, and then at the end we see how peaceful the person who is ready to die, ready to go home is, because it's the phase of acceptance, right? And we might bring these sometimes for the grief that we are dealing daily from losing someone we love or whatever, anything else we would be grieving with. But yes, you're right. Dr. Elizabeth claims that as the stages of grief for someone in a terminal disease. Yes.
Right. And it's kind of interesting. When I first heard it, I remember thinking, that it didn't make any sense at all pretty much because of the first one, which was denial. But in my work since I first learned about them, there actually are times when people weren't there maybe to witness the passing of someone, so they want to believe that they haven't actually passed. So it's not so much that they're not valid, it's just that they're not linear, and they were never really introduced with the idea that it was meant for the grief process. So
Yes. And like we discussed before, like they come and go in a mixed of emotions, right? Some days I wake up, for example, and I feel like, oh my God, is it true that my husband passed away? And it's 8 years that he passed away. So I kind of think that this would be a minimal kind of denial, still. And the anger that we feel in the beginning when someone we love dies, like, why is this happening to me? We're going to talk about all these questionings, right? But like, and then at some point, the acceptance and using the time and using the grief and using the gifts and moving with, which is what we are going to talk today too, finding meaning in the grief, right? All these
Yeah,
emotions come together and they just help each one of them and help us to delineate the path that we want to walk using our time in grief.
for sure. That's true. And so let's then, before we get into this a little deeper, let's just talk about there's a couple of different forms of grief that I'm sure that you and I have experienced. Maybe you could speak to, let me know. I'd like to know what your experience might have been with anticipatory grief. Did you experience that?
A lot. So anticipatory grief is when the person you love hasn't died yet. But for example, in a diagnosis of a terminal disease, right, a terminal cancer or any other debilitating disease that will lead to death. And I agree that this happens also to the person who is dealing with the disease because they are anticipating they're going to die and they are anticipating they're going to lose their functions and the strength of their bodies. But for us, the one who are being the witness of the person dying each day a little bit and decreasing their abilities a little bit, and the body decline and the body wasting every day a little bit. That's the anticipatory grief. And also knowing that the future, it's not going to go the way we once planned or the way we once dreamed. So everything kind of slips away in between our fingers, and that's the anticipatory grief. And like, for example, right now, unfortunately, I'm going through this because my uncle, who is a father figure for me, my mom's brother, he is in Brazil, and I was there for the month of August, and he got diagnosed with something really bad acutely. It was a stroke, and he is declining. So he is in hospice for 2 days already. So this is anticipatory grief. I know that he's gonna go away. I know that his body will be released and his soul will go back home. But thank God, I have enormous gratitude for God to having brought me to Brazil before
Mm.
he got sick, and I was able to be there, not as a coincidence, because I don't believe in coincidence, but I was able to be there and spend good time with him. And I was also able to help my family in dealing with hospital and getting things prepared for his hospice time. And I'm grateful for us. I am grateful for him in my life. I am grateful for our journey. And I am grateful that I know that the relationship continues in souls. So we're going to talk about this soon.
Oh,
Soon.
I have such goosebumps with that because, I know that it sounds what counterintuitive, I guess might be the word. I'm not sure, but to think about gifts and grief, and the idea that you were in Brazil spending time. I have a story like that I'll share, but that just, there are no coincidences, and what a beautiful gift that is. And yes, the anticipation of what you're dealing with is, you're already grieving. I just won't say
Yeah.
it any other way because there is no other way to say it. So I want to honor that too.
Thank you. Thank you to be here with me, sitting on the bench.
I am.
And that's the anticipatory grief, is when, like, I saw my husband with the stage 4 cancer declining. And again, like I said, it's envisioning the future, envisioning the person dying and going back home, and envisioning your future life in a different way,
Yes.
and
And
suffering daily with
yes,
that.
Yes, yes, yes. Just as it says, the anticipation of the future, and it's anticipation and grief, anticipatory grief. The other one I wanted to touch on was something called complicated grief, which, I'll be honest, there is such a thing called complicated grief. And I believe that it is when, I didn't really look it up because I've known it so well for so long, but basically it states that if you are really, really dealing with deep emotions for longer than a year, then you may be experiencing complicated grief. And you and I have spoken to many people who have experienced grief and the passing of a loved one. And those feelings can stay very deep and intense and strong for many years. And so I don't really, I'm just going to put that out there for the idea that it exists. But for me personally, I don't know that I would give that, an assignment, the complicated grief. I just think that grief is complicated, any way you look at it. So do you have anything you want to say about that? What would you say?
I like what you're saying because grief is complicated. And I do not believe that it should be a timeline. And I know that you don't believe this either. So when I say, oh, complicated grief is when I have not healed in a year, uh, I go back to what we have learned in the courses that we did on having permission to mourn with Tom Zuba, like or other courses we have done with David Kessler and people who really work with grief daily, like you as well, because you are a grief certified coach. So I do believe, and I know you do too, and you're going to talk about that, that it's not a timeline. I do believe it's much more how you are using your time to heal, understanding what we just said, that the emotions are come out of the blue and they might want to drown you and feel like you're drowning, but giving yourself grace to feel the emotions and shift your perception and shift your behavior and use the time to heal. Like we learned so much that grief is not the destination, I am healed, but grief is much more the journey of healing daily, according to what you are doing daily, according to how you are using your time daily to heal, right? So that's what I believe.
For
So
sure.
I invite each one of you who are in a complicated grief, not because it's a longer grief than people or the world would expect, but I invite each one of you who are in a complicated grief because it has been hard for you to face your emotions. It has been hard for you to deal with your emotions. You kind of buried yourself in this deep, dark hole of grief. So we are here to invite you to make grief a little bit less heavy, a little bit less complicated, a little bit more bearable. So uncomplicating grief is really getting one step at a time in saying yes to your life and living your life and using your time to honor the person you love who is at home in soul. And we're going to talk about that. So let's uncomplicate grief together. Let's hold each other in our hearts with our souls, and let's make this path of grief a little bit more bearable together with the tools we are going to share here. Let's go,
That's
Mary.
that's right.
I talked too much.
No, not at all. And honoring, and there is no, uh, you don't have to abide by anyone else's timeline. And I think by honoring your journey and doing as Anna mentioned, I think that just trying to unravel it step by step, little by little, your healing is your healing. So I agree 100% with what Anna was saying. Um, so yeah, I mean, so that goes along sort of with the misconceptions of grief, which is that time heals all wounds, that, if we just keep busy, just keep busy, and that, grief should last about a year, if you're experiencing grief in September of 2024, in September 2025, you'll be a-okay. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's just, it's kind of ridiculous. There is no timeline. There are, as Anna has already said, it is what you do with your time that that moves your healing along. And healing is, yeah, I don't want to be repetitive, but healing is not a destination. And I would contend that life is not a destination either. It's all about the journey. So all this to say, cut yourself some slack, give yourself some compassion and some grace, and let your healing unfold as it is meant to, because there are no coincidences and no accidents. You're exactly where you're supposed to be, and you're doing this all in the exact right time for you. So, what other misconceptions are you familiar with, Anna? Does anything come to mind or no?
Yeah, I invite every one of us to debunk these misconceptions, to completely erase them from your brain. Like Mary said, the keeping busy, the pretending, the faking, time is a deadline for you to be healed. It's just what she said. Use your time to keep healing. Grief is a journey, not a destination. Talk out loud about your feelings and your emotions to the people who are able to listen. You have to know the people who are able to be a safe space for you and that are going to hold you in love and grace and support. And just keep doing life, saying yes to life, bringing grief with you, not as a heavy baggage, but as a gift that we are going to discuss how to. Yes.
And I love that you said about faking, because in grief recovery, we call that the Academy Award winning performance. When someone asks you how you are and you say, I'm fine, and you're, anything but fine. So, finding a way to, and that's really hard. When I was going through the training, you had to try to be one of the sayings or mantras was to be honest all the time, to say what you're honestly feeling all the time. And that's really difficult, because if you're at the grocery store and someone asks you, the checkout clerk asks you how you're doing, and you say I'm fine, or when you're not, or you say I'm not fine, and it's so awkward that nobody wants to go there. But there's a lot there's a lot to be said for being in that authentic space whenever you can. But again, for me, I say you do whatever is the most comfortable thing for you to do. I mean, it's your healing and your timeline and what's best for you. Don't let anyone tell you,
Yes.
what is the best thing for you. So,
And again, like I said, recognize the people who are going to be able to listen, and recognize that you don't need any advice. In fact, you don't want any advice. And just be honest as much as possible with the people who are able to listen as much as possible. For example, if you are at the grocery store, like Mary said, and someone asks you, how are you doing? And you don't want to say you are fine because you are having a difficult day, just say, I'm having a difficult day and I am still building life. Or I am dealing with grief and I am building life. And for the people who are there for you in the grief world, you can say, listen, I am dealing with my grief. Today it has been harder. Today I have been crying. Today I'm missing so much. And I understand that the missing is love. So you know the people who you can trust and the people who you can open your heart that will have acceptance. And you know the people that you don't need to fake, you don't need to pretend, but you don't have to pour your pain on top of them because
right.
they're not going to be able to deal with that, right?
Yep, you can say something that's mostly true, like I'm standing on solid ground, or something like that, So right, right. So Anna, I'm going to ask you now. I would, if you would share whatever it is that you'd like to share about Jilson and your journey, or your journey with, your mom and dad, or what would you like to share about what you've experienced with grief? I would love to hear about it.
So the first person who died who is really important for me is my grandma, and she died in 1994, so like 30 years ago. My grandma was my major mom figure because my parents divorced when I was a child. And at that time, I was in medical school, finishing medical school, busy, 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 grief in the busy, faking, pretending, numbing, doing a roller coaster of things to just not think about it. After that, my mom died in 2004 from ovarian cancer. It was a little bit different. It was a little bit more shocking for me. I felt a little bit more, but again, also in the pretending, denying, suppressing mode, not talking about that with anyone. Sometimes even thinking and questioning myself, oh my God, have I ever loved my mom? Have I ever loved my grandma? Because I wouldn't allow myself to miss them. I would just like suppress and really bury my feelings and emotions. I wouldn't feel the love and I wouldn't feel the pain, right? Because they come together, right? And then in 2013, my husband Gilson got sick with colon cancer stage 4, and I started living the anticipatory grief, and I started feeling the pain and very, very hard. And I used lots of coping mechanisms that were not healthy. We're going to talk about that. I ate so much and I gained 40, almost 50 pounds. And I had very difficult conversations with my husband, and we had conversations about preparing his will, preparing his support, preparing hospice, um, and also like how my life would look like without him.
Mm.
And when he died, I was still doing grief a little bit in the old way, the pretending, the numbing, the faking, but it was at work. But it was very hard because when I would come home, I was very heavy and depressed, and the house was so silent and everything was so dark. Thank God I had my dog, Frank, because otherwise I think that after 6 p.m. and during the weekends, I would do nothing but just lay down and sleep because I needed to recharge my energies because I was exhausted using all my energy in the grief stage, in the beginning of the grief stages to work, to keep like paying my bills, right? And at that time, that's when I found the grief groups. That's when I found the book of Tom Zuba, Permission to Mourn. That was the only book that I was able to read. And that's the book for whoever can see on YouTube or video. So, Permission to Mourn, A New Way to Do Grief. And I'm so grateful because, and then I did a grief group. Where I met new friends that were dealing with grief. And that's what I'm saying. It's so important to find your tribe. It's so important to connect with the people to understand you. It's so important to share your heart and share the tools and resources to heal together. Because many times I would think, oh my God, am I crazy because I'm thinking about my husband all the time? Oh my God, am I crazy because I'm questioning and being angry with God? Oh my God, like, am I too depressed that I can't even get out of the bed? And you're going to see, like I saw, that we are all humans and we are all equals, right? So it's good to see that we are equals and we are not the only ones doing this or that, and we are not the only ones um, alone. We are not alone in this journey. So with Gilson, I've learned a different way of doing grief, and I am grateful for that. And I've questioned many things. I've found myself. I've questioned God. I've questioned my guilt in being a doctor and not having helped him, up to the point I learned that I needed to surrender to the plan of God, the plan of souls, the soul contracts, and many other things that are not in the scope of this conversation today. But I've learned that I needed to use my time to heal, to honor my love, to honor our love. I needed to keep building the connection with him in souls, in hearts, and spirit. I needed to allow myself to open the eyes of my soul, to the heart of my soul, the ears of my soul, and be able to see the signs and the music and the clouds and the songs and the
Mhm.
smells that would bring him to me, and the numbers that show me that he's with me all the time, and connecting and making new friends and building hope. but at the same time sitting with the pain and the sadness and the the darkness of grief, but at each and every day questioning all of them until I found that the foundation and the basis of that pain, the deep grief, was the love and was the missing of the physical body, understanding that yes, I miss the physical body because I am a physical body, but my soul is connected with him, and learning to love each and every emotion, each and every feeling, and just start shifting them from pain to peace, from sadness and longing and missing to love, from understanding to surrendering to forgiving me by knowing that although I am a doctor, I could not be more powerful than his plan, than the plan of God. So that was his journey, that was his way of finishing his work here on this earth and releasing his body in gratitude and going back home also all light in the presence of God, and also using books and learning that um, I was doing my best, like the book of the four agreements. I was doing my best, and some days my best would be 1%, but you know what, 1% was my best, and I was doing that and not beating myself up, and using my words, like using my words. I am healing, I am healing, I am healing, and taking time to breathe, and taking time to hydrate, and taking time to rest, and taking time to love myself and hug myself and hold myself in the safe space that is my heart, in the safe space that is my faith. And when my dad died in 2021, I've learned a little bit more that I needed to invest a little bit more time in taking care of myself and, kind of changing the still residual numbing way of living. And now that my uncle is in this process of dying, I am just learning to allow myself to honor the love, to feel the love, to pray for him, for his body to not suffer, and for God to hold us, because my faith has been a fundamental portion of my healing in everything in my life since when my parents divorced and I was only 7 years old. Just God holding us, holding all of us on the palm of his hands and allowing me to give, like Gary Zukav says, one only one small step forward in love to me. And then I ask every day, what would be the next smallest step in love for me at this moment when I am celebrating or when I am in deep grief? And like I said, sometimes it's lighting a candle, sometimes it's reading a book, sometimes it's going for a walk, sometimes it's talking to Mary, sometimes it's being quiet and silent. And one step at a time, I walk the journey of grief until the time that God's going to come back and pick me up, and I'm going to release my body, and I'm going to go back and be also as well. And I would love to hear from you as well, Mary.
Thank you for sharing that, Anna. You said, I think that anyone who's listening, that is what healing looks like. All the things that you just described and the steps that you've taken and the grace that you've shown yourself and the breathing and all of those steps, everything you said, there's so much. I would encourage anyone to go back and listen to that again, slowly and take that in. And what you said at the end there really resonated so much with me as well, which is for me, and I'm putting the cart before the horse just a tiny bit, but one of the mantras or the things that I used so much and still do, but especially early on for me in my grief journey, was I just, please let me just give me enough light to take the next step with love. I mean, the one thing that I learned that I would, I'm going really backwards, but telling you what my biggest lesson, grief lesson has been, which I didn't even write it down, but my biggest and truest grief lesson is that the only thing that is real in this life is love. That is the only thing that's real. That was the only thing that brought me any comfort, was to immerse myself in anything that felt like love. That was the biggest tool that I used consciously, subconsciously. That was the only thing that really was helpful. So let me back up. So for me, and I kind of just want to, I'm going to just, not because I don't think it's always super healthy to, or helpful to go back and sort of uh, add up all of my grief. I don't generally do that. But I would just acknowledge what you said, Anna, about your parents divorcing when you were 7, and my parents divorced when I was 17. So there was grief. And I certainly now being, 64, can look back on my mom's journey, with that. And I can have so much empathy and compassion for her as she was grieving the loss of her marriage. So kind of just wanted to honor that. So for me, where I would say that my conscious grief journey started was with the passing of our son Brian, who is 24, and but I did experience anticipatory grief because Brian was neurodiverse. He had been diagnosed with ADHD, and now as my life experience moving forward with my children and grandchildren, I have now been able to see my son Brian in a different light and really understanding his neurodiversity in a different way, which wasn't really recognized, 20, 30 years ago. Autism and the autistic scale was different. So there's been a lot of self-forgiveness that I've had because we could not recognize certain things that were probably in play at that time. But so because Brian was neurodiverse, I think that, and because the drug epidemic is so insanely in front of us, that led him down a path to feel normal, and with anxiety and all of that. So we worried. The reason I'm going there is that we worried for him so much during his journey. It was a 9-year journey for him, and he was getting better. He was doing so well, but the nature of addiction and drug use is that one false move and you don't know if you'll get a second chance. And so he ran out of time. That would be a story I could tell myself. I don't really believe that. What I believe, and as Anna believes, I know, is that Brian finished all of his work and he went home. And I also believe that and again, this is beyond the scope of this conversation, but I believe it was in God's plan. I believe that I was part of that plan, that the divine allowed my soul. The personality of me had nothing to do with it, but it was all, it wasn't a coincidence. It all was divine timing. So that's what I will say about that. But so when Brian passed, it broke me completely open, and gave me the opportunity, because grief is a teacher, to examine everything in my life, and to just go down this path of immense growth, to become into a path of becoming who I actually came here to be, I believe. And so, tools that I used, early on would be, we'll talk about this more briefly toward the end, but, YouTube and just, anything that it had to do with heaven and with where we go. And again, I have permission to mourn 2, fantastic book. So grateful to Tom Zuba for writing this book. I found that a little later, but still resonates so much with me. But so when Brian passed, I'm on this right in the middle of this deep sorrow and investigating and just trying to put one step in front of the other, all the things that Anna was saying. And I get a call from my brother. My mom had pneumonia and she was hospitalized. And So I live away, and I'd always wanted my siblings to call me. I wanted to be able to help with my parents if should the need ever arise, even though I lived away. So he called, and this was just 3 months after Brian had passed, and asked me if I could come to help him get my mom back on her feet after she came home from the hospital. And it was difficult. I have to be honest. I mean, I wanted to go. I'd been waiting for the call, and then the call came, and I did not know that if I had didn't know if I could dig deep enough to do what needed to be. I just felt like such a deer in headlights as it was. But I went, and I want to say that what an immense and incredible gift that was. I went because I was already learning before I went to be with my mom, who was getting well, but I'd already kind of delved into um, compassion, and had already learned some wisdom and learned to be more vulnerable about life. And I had gotten stronger and didn't really realize some of these things. So I go to New York, and I'm with my mom, and because of my experience with Brian, when things started to fall apart and it was obvious that she was transitioning to go home, I was able to step out of my story of, losing Brian, and feeling like a victim, and to be there with so much strength and courage from my mom. I'm the youngest of 5 kids, and I really took control of a lot of that situation where I never would have before. And the gift part was that I had 3 weeks with my mom, caring for her, 24/7, being able to, change bedding and give her meds and do all the things, So what a huge gift that was. And so then I came home, and so that was um, so Brian passed in September. My mother passed in June. My dad was failing. I had booked a flight so that I could see him in September. And 2 days before the flight, my sister called and told me my dad was really failing. So I get to New York on September 5th, 4th or 5th. My dad passes on September 6th. Did I go, did I book a flight and go? No, the flight had been booked. So I just think that, that there are no coincidences, and all of these things just came together for me in such an amazing way, such gifts. And I'm just so grateful for that. And um, there's so many things that I could tell myself about Brian and my parents, but especially Brian, that he was taken too soon, and all of the things, or that that we were robbed, and all of the stories. But I don't believe it, because I think that he, I believe in divine timing, and my God is a loving and kind God, not someone who takes people randomly. It's all part of something that I don't fully understand and won't fully understand until I take my last breath. But I believe it with all my heart. I also just wanted to read something real quick. This is my son. His bio poem. He was a hockey player, and he was a AAA hockey player. He was very talented and could have gone potentially, he was that talented enough to go very far. But so this is, it's very quickly, my bio poem. And it reads like this: Brian, who is athletic and fun. Brian, who is brother of Kevin and Stephanie. Brian, who loves food, music, and family. Brian, who feels tired after a long day at school. Brian, who needs hockey, food, and sleep, who gives thoughts. Brian, who fears snakes, spiders, and serial killers. Brian, who dreams of playing pro hockey. Brian, who shares ideas. Brian, who is outgoing, happy, and energetic. Brian, who lives in Duluth, Georgia. That's Brian Mortimer. And just one other one, which is really, I thought, really funny. So he wrote this when he was 15, so 14 or 15. But these are his questions about life. Why is the sky blue? Why are all the songs on MTV so bad and all the same? How was the world made? Why do things make sounds? Why do people make such big deals out of such little things? How do some people jump so high? Why are people allergic to things? Why is the grass green? Why do dogs bark? Why do bees sting people? How are some people given psychic abilities? Why is it so hot in Georgia? And who got to pick out which words are the bad ones? So that's Brian, and there's more, but I could not be more grateful to be his mom and all of the gifts that he brought me. So those are our stories.
That's beautiful. I want to cry. My eyes are filled with water because it's your genuine Brian, and he is with you all the time.
Yes.
And he is a gift, and he brought me to you. And yes, and a light, a soul of light, a heart of gold. And he finished his work and he went back home. And yes, you suffer because you miss the physical body, like I said, because we are physical bodies.
Yes.
But at the same time, at the moment we pause and we let our souls just be, you are able to share your Brian, and he's just here with us, right? And I love that you shared all these questions because it's almost like Brian is just teaching us. Listen, for you to lie, to live, you have to ask questions. For you to face death, you also have to ask questions. Like Mary was saying, the path of grief, the journey of grief is questioning like, where is my loved one who died? Because we do use the phrase like I lost my husband, or she lost her Brian. But it's heavy, although it's common used in the world, right? But it's heavy because in fact we know we haven't lost them. They are right here with you and with me, and he just showed himself right now. So words have power. We use as a common habit, we lost our loved one, but the first word, the first phrase, the first question, where is our loved one? Where is your loved one who died? And as soon as you get to connect to your loved one and know that he or she or they are not lost, you can feel their presence and you can allow yourself to really expand the relationship and expand the love and expand building life together, experiencing life together. And the second question would be, where are they? You know, where are their souls? I believe they are in heaven, but I also believe he is with me all the time, because the soul is just the universe, the abundance of the universe is God, right? With us all the time. And also, what was the plan of the soul? What was my plan together with his plan? What was the plan of God and the plan that we surrender? And who is God? Who is God for you? Like Mary just says, it's not a dog that, it's not a dog. It's not a God that takes, because God and dog are such good, amazing things, right?
That's true.
Our dog is, my dog is like a gift from God for me because he
Oh, for
kept me
sure.
alive. He keeps me alive.
Oh, for sure. That
Yes. So what is your God for you? Who is your God for you? Like Mary said, I was saying, God doesn't take things away. So how do you see your God? So all these questions are important to live and keep building life in the journey of grief, like Brian was doing in his life, you know. Why do dogs bark? Why do people die? You know, why the grass is green? Why do I feel sadness and the blues of the grief, right? Because everything has an answer. And the deepness and the deep you go in your questions, the deeper love you're going to find. And when you connect with this love, you embrace their souls, you raise your energy, you connect with their energy. You are where they are where you are. And at that moment, you are healing, and yes, at that moment, you shift from the deep pain to gratitude. You shift to peace. You shift to love. You shift to acceptance, to surrender. And most importantly, you shift to saying yes to life and building life with them, because that's what is important. And when you say yes to life, that's when we're going to use tools and resources despite beyond the questioning, right? That's when we have
Part of it.
tools and resources to build life every day,
Yeah,
right?
that's definitely part of it. I think the first thing that, and I think that one thing that's so overlooked, and it's easy to, is that we have to be open and willing and have to make a decision even when we don't, whenever it's ready for you. I won't say that you should make what I'm about to say any earlier than you're ready, but I want you to realize, if you're listening, that healing takes intention. It's a conscious decision. You have to want to heal, and sometimes the pain is so great and so intense that it's easy to not want to. I'll just say it like that. But you have to set an intention to heal. You have to want to heal, and um, and there are steps that you can take. I mean, I used to say, just tell me what it is, but I think that instinctively we know, our bodies know. It is things like, it's going to sound very simple, but it is things like eating healthy food. It's getting good sleep. It's taking care of your mind. It's taking care of your body. It's journaling. It's being creative. It's what else? Crying, getting grief up and out. It's gratitude. It's feeling your feelings. It's all of those things. So we have to set the intention to heal. But I want to say this too, that if you're listening to this podcast and you don't believe in healing, because I know that there are people, I've talked to many people who just have said to me, I don't, that word, I don't really believe it. So let me just say this. If you can't believe in healing, could you believe in hope? Could you believe in the hope of healing? Could you believe in the hope that things could get better? Could you believe in the hope of feeling peace?
Yeah.
If you can't believe in healing, how about trying to believe in the possibility of healing and the possibility of hope? So,
I would add, if you cannot believe in healing, how about you pause for a second, pretend that you are sitting with your loved one just in front of you, and connect to their love. Connect to ask your loved one, what do you want from me right now? How were we connected in the journey when you are in your physical body, and how could we be connected right now? Because the main thing is, for you to decide to heal, you have to have your deep why, your deep reason. And I believe that my deep reason was knowing that my husband is alive in his soul, is knowing that, and also knowing that he loves me, he loved me, he will keep loving me, our love will only keep expanding. And in love, the love with capital letters, he would never want me to sit and sleep and cry and mourn forever. He wants me to be joyful, to smile, to celebrate life, to feel the bad feelings, to feel the difficult feelings, to feel the painful feelings, and also use them to keep looking and living life with Him, to be able to make a food that he likes and say, hey, this is the food I'm making for you. Experiment that with me. Hey, look at this beautiful sky. Look at this beautiful day and this warm sun. And know that he's feeling that with me when I feel the wind in my face. So if you do not believe in healing, how about believing and connecting with the love from your loved one? Because the love from your loved one wants nothing else than you to live. And for you to live, you have to heal and you have to put the action and you have to do the work. And it's not going to feel easy at it's not going to feel easy, but it's a it's telling yourself, I'm doing this little by little, one step at one step. It's going out for a walk, it's enjoying your sun. It's like Mary said, eating healthy food. It's paying attention to your breathing. It's paying attention to your hydration. It's, taking care of your brain. It's choosing books for you to read that will help you. And like me, when I was in the beginning of grief, and even now, I would not pay attention to the book. So I had the hard copy of the book and I also have the audible version because then someone is reading, I am highlighting, I can stop. And on that and journaling, like get these beautiful journals for you. It's a colorful journal that I'm holding on my hand right now, and it says, live thoughtfully, choose kindness, be grateful, love one another, enjoy the moment. I got it at Target, and I'm not making propaganda for anyone, but like get beautiful journals and journal your pain. Journal your pain until you find the love and the gratitude from your loved one, wanting
Yeah.
you to say yes to life,
You know,
right?
and even just right at the top of the page, what do you know, Brian, what do you want me to know? Jilson, what do you want me to know?
Yes,
And
yes,
and what if you could believe that, as you were saying, Anna, that your loved one is guiding you. I mean, you didn't put it quite that way, but that's what you were. I think that's what you're suggesting. That
yeah,
what if your loved one is trying to show you the way toward living and toward life? If you can't believe in healing, believe that they're still there because energy is not created or not. It is simply rearranged. Physics. So I definitely believe that.
yes.
Um,
And it's very important to say yes to you. Say yes in honoring your love, your loved one, and saying yes to life. It's very important to use your time to heal. And on that, I wanted to share some stuff, and I know that Mary is going to share something too, which are the tools from our healing. So for me,
yes.
it was very important to connect with people who were willing to heal together. I know that there are so many grief groups out there. If you are in a grief group that is only pulling you down, that is only bringing you to a depressed state, to sadness and rumination of pain, that's not the place you want to be. And you want to wish well for all the souls around you, but you want to find people who are willing to heal and do this journey of healing with you, like Mary and I, and people from other groups like the Tom Zuba groups that we were together, or the David Kesley groups that, you know, look around. There are people who are willing to heal. Get out of the victim position, the pain position, the deep sadness, and stay there for a little bit, but then shift, which I do. And I'm going to share my too so then Mary can share. So for people who are seeing on YouTube, I have this beautiful jar that says, you are loved. All my feelings, all my emotions, all my thoughts, everything that is related to grief, I honor them. And I time when they come to me, I tell them, I'm going to be with you for 15 minutes right now. In the beginning, might be a week, a month, but now I'm telling you, I'm going to be with you for 15 minutes. And I'm going to connect with the love and the gratitude, and I'm going to release, and I'm going to keep building the day. And on the people that I said that are going to help you heal, like this beautiful statue, like
Mhm.
hold the hands and hold the hearts and hold the souls from the people who are a safe, sacred space for you. And also like this hand up to open towards heaven. Connect to your loved ones and connect to your faith, to the higher power, to the universe. Other things that help me so much. I love candles, so I light a candle. And this candle from Yankee Candle has a picture of my husband, so you can do that. And I love that because the smell just brings me peace, and you are the one responsible for building a space of peace for you in your house or wherever you are. So look around. What brings peace to you? A comfy chair, a warm blanket, a candle, a bath, a bubble bath, whatever brings flowers, whatever brings peace for you. There are some books that were very helpful for me. So I love Permission to Mourn. I love Option B from Sheryl Sandberg. I love this book, The Alchemist from Paulo
Mm.
Coelho. It helps you understand that there is a plan and you are part of the plan. Gary Zukav, he has courses, and I love this book, The Seat of the Soul, that helped me so much to connect a little bit more with my spiritual side of feeling the soul, seeing the soul, and building with my soul. I love this book, Bearing the Unbearable, which I say so much. Walking together and holding each other is making grief more bearable. There are other books that I love, and I'm just going to say them very fast. Marianne Williamson, she has A Course in Miracles. Nora McKerney has No Happy Endings. This book from Susan Hanifin McNabb is A to Z Healing Toolbox. So there are many, many, many tools from A to Z that you could use, the ones that resonate with your heart. And it's what we are talking about. It's reading, it's journaling, it's nutrition, it's exercise, is faith, is hope, is acceptance, is sleeping, is grounding, is having enjoying the sun, and really just building healthy habits, because in the beginning for me it was really easy to try to numb myself again in keeping busy, being a workaholic, working, and going through the emotions, or watching Netflix, or scrolling through my phone. And these are the numbing tools that are not the healthy patterns of healing. I'm not saying that you shouldn't do that at all, but like the less you do of the unhealthy coping mechanisms and the more you add one one by one, the healthy mechanisms, the more you are going to heal better. And one thing that helps me a lot and will always help me in any stage of my life is God, the Bible, and vision boards, looking at the future with eyes of hope, with eyes of faith, with eyes of joy, and knowing that I am the one responsible for building them. And when I am building life in what I call Gratitude Awakening Road, Gilson Ana Rosa, I'm honoring me, I'm honoring my husband, I'm honoring our love, I'm honoring each one of you, because we are all together in this world. And now I'm going to send it to Mary because she also wants to share her own tools. And
But
yeah.
I won't be too redundant because you shared all those books, and I will try to put those in the show notes if I can. But those are all really, really good ones. I would also share with you that I am a grief recovery methods specialist. That is a really great program. It is a process. It is not therapy. It is a process. It's the only evidence-based process for healing from grief, if you will, that is available. You can look it up. It is peer reviewed, and it is the only one out there like that. I am a grief recovery method specialist, so I'm certified in that program. I've worked with many people who have found it extremely helpful. So that's a tool. And also, I had a podcast before this called Grit Grief Relief. It takes time. Of course, it doesn't take just time. There's more to it than that. I will warn you that it is honest. It's kind of raw at times, but it is, if you are new to the grief journey, I really would encourage you or invite you to listen to that, because I think that you will feel seen and heard and honored, and you could identify with it. I think because when I was in that space, it's a very different space than where I am now. So you might look that up. Um, I also, again, support groups. I ran support groups and I worked with Anna in support. And so I won't really go any further into that except to say that Anna is right. If you're not feeling lifted and that you're healing, if it's just pulling you further down, then recognize that, wish everyone well, and find one that is more uplifting, that will help you to begin to move forward or be able to breathe, because there are people who are wanting to sit with you on the bench and wanting to heal and heal with you as you go. So that I just want you to feel encouraged and know that that is available. um, again, YouTube is a really good resource. I mean, you can just, if you're new to grief, sometimes just Googling, something that you want to hear about can really be helpful. I know I spent a lot of time doing that. One book that I do like, and I was going to read this quickly too, is Grief One Day at a Time. It's a daily, there's a daily entry, and so I looked up because I haven't, to be honest, I don't do it all the time now. I used to, but September 4th. And this is what I want you all to know. This is Anna and I honoring and seeing you. And today's entry is this. And it says, I smiled. I'm not really here to keep you from freaking out. I'm here to be with you while you freak out, or grieve, or laugh, or suffer, or sing. It is a ministry of presence. It is showing up with a loving heart. So, you know, people want to sit with you on the bench. We're sitting with you on the bench. And I think as we close, I just want to offer up that if you are in deep grief right now, I want to encourage you and invite you to consider the possibility that life will beckon to you. Life will call you again. And, can you leave the door open a tiny bit to be willing to engage? The two things that I learned, as I said earlier in the podcast, about grief is that love is what guides us. Love is the way. And I'm not done living yet. I came here to live. Everything that has happened in my experience is here to show me something. It's part of my plan. Grief has been my greatest teacher. It's still teaching me. And I am grateful. I'm grateful for the experiences. I'm not grateful for the sorrow. Well, I won't say that. I will say that I'm grateful for all the lessons that I've learned. That's what I will say. So, Anna, back to you.
Yes, so what Mary said, it's about saying yes to life. And I would invite you to open the door, even if it's the only thing you do today. Open the door to the path of healing. And you are doing it right now by listening to the podcast. It's already a little bit that you're opening the door. So each and every day, with each and every action you take, even if it's the smallest one that you are thinking that it's too small, it's already opening the door a little bit more and you are walking it a little bit more. And celebrate your smallest steps, because smallest steps are the ones who lead to huge destinations and huge changes. And understanding, accepting, holding the intention to heal, and the fact that you surrender to what you cannot control and life is happening for you, the good, the bad, the ugly. It's really not a coincidence. It's happening for you and not to you. And like Mary said in the beginning of this podcast, and I love this idea, if you are feeling your like a little bit of light, a little bit of light, if you are feeling like grief has been a dark space and you look around and you don't see anything, just light the candle of hope and the candle of love in your heart. And this little flicker of light will be enough for just one step. But that's the only step you have to take today. And
With
tomorrow,
with self-compassion.
yes. And tomorrow is another step, and tomorrow is another step. And find someone like us, like grief groups and support that will hold you and hold your hands and hold your soul and keep walking. Because if you are here, if you are breathing, you have work to do, and your loved one who is not in their physical bodies, they want you to finish your work with excellence, and they want to finish your work with you.
That's
Yeah.
right. So that is it, my friends. We are going to wrap this up. I want to encourage you to share this episode with someone who might need to hear some of these things. Please subscribe to the podcast, give us a rating, and come back and be with us again next time.
We love you. Keep living
With grace. We
yes.
do love you. We do love you. We see you and we honor you also. Take good care, and we will be back very soon. Bye now.